My name is Stephanie Alvarez, and I am a freshman student at California State University, Northridge, and I'm here today with my former student from Crenshaw High School. And during my years of high school, I had the opportunity to have Mr. Caputo-Pearl as my history teacher, and he motivated me to be part of an internship with Community Services Unlimited, a nonprofit organization based on bringing healthy options for the community. And I had the chance to start from the bottom and build my skills until I got promoted to youth coordinator with CSU. I want to thank Mr. Sipi for always looking forward on bringing opportunities and benefits to his students, and also for speaking up when our privileges are not being given to us, and for always letting the students involved in the class. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Tara Shakur. Nice to be with you all this evening. I had the pleasure of having Mr. Caputo-Pearl, aka CP, as history teacher. And in his class, I got to do internships and join organizations that helped me to fight the injustices in my community, like Sierra Club, Community Health Council, Youth Justice Coalition, Coalition for Educational Justice, just to name a few. Because of him, I hope to become a history and English teacher, teaching in prisons, making sure incarcerated people get high school diplomas. It is I'm also a freshman in Cal State. Had to throw that out there. It is my great pleasure to introduce the man of the night, Alex Caputo-Pearl.
Okay. Good evening. It's great to be here. First of all, welcome to the UTLA Leadership Conference. I'm Alex Caputo-Pearl. I'm a proud 22-year teacher in South LA and proud now to be your president. What a privilege to know these young people who just introduced me. As my students, they helped build a school improvement model at Crenshaw High School that is directly connected to students learning from doing work in the community. That's the work I come out of for the last 25 years, community organizing. With Tauhida now immersed in the work of redirecting prison monies into education, with Stephanie developing into a leader for environmental justice, this will give, and with Elijah, who wasn't able to make it here tonight, developing a small business that will give back to his community, it makes you realize exactly how special our jobs as educators is. We get to see so many great young people, and we get to see the greatness that's growing in them. So I appreciate Tauhida and Stephanie being here tonight. Let me just say that I'm working with an absolutely fantastic team. And that's good. That's good because unions aren't going to win anything without being a big, fantastic team, all of us together. Let's acknowledge the great work that the union officers, board of directors, and staff are doing, and for putting this conference together. Let's acknowledge for a moment the work for the union that former UTLA presidents have done, whose shoulders upon which we stand. Warren Fletcher, AJ Duffy, John Perez, Day Higuchi, and Wayne Johnson. Let's acknowledge our guests who are here tonight from LA and around the country who give us a lift in so many ways. And most importantly, let's acknowledge the work of chapter chairs, co-chairs, vice chairs, and other rank and file leaders who are here tonight who are going to be the backbone of the Schools LA Students Deserve contract and community campaign. Give yourselves a big round of applause. So I'm going to embarrass a couple people now. I want to say a thank you to the people who make all this possible for me. My mother-in-law, Pat, is here tonight. She often tells me that I'm her favorite son-in-law and that I'm her only son-in-law. Pat recently retired from decades of work with the Women, Infants, and Children's Program, or the WIC program. She's a true public servant, and she helps our family so much now. Thank you, Pat. My 10-year-old son, Max, and my 7-year-old daughter, Ella, who go to a great LAUSD school. I think a couple of their teachers are over on this side of the room. Max and Ella are my inspiration. I knew Max's unbridled enthusiasm would be a model for me when, on one of the many hikes that we've taken together, out in a remote national forest, he decided not just to stop and observe a coyote and a bobcat that we saw on a trail. He actually decided to take off running after them. And unbridled enthusiasm can be good. I knew my daughter Ella, her spirit of collaboration, would be an inspiration for me when, in one of her first soccer games ever, she jogged up to a player on the opposing team and she asked, with great earnestness, "Which team do you want to win?" Collaboration is good, though that might have taken it a little bit too far. So that's my Max and Ella. And my wife, Ann, whom I got to know when we decided 22 years ago to carpool to work together, when we taught at schools that were down the street from each other in Compton. Ann is now a labor and delivery nurse, and she keeps me going more than anybody else in the world. And I consider myself very lucky that she hasn't thrown me out of the carpool of life over the last 22 years. I love all of you, Pat, Ann, Max, and Ella. So we're here this weekend because our schools, our profession, and the future of our students are under attack. But we're also here because we're going to do something about it. It caused some bumps, but we did the right thing when we changed the venue of this conference to support the hotel and restaurant workers down the street who are fighting for a contract. When low-wage workers in LA get a good contract, it helps our schools because those workers are the parents of our students. When we went over there today and participated in that rally, there were parents from 9 different LAUSD schools represented among those protesting workers. We've got to be a part of that movement. Despite that bump in the leadership conference of having to move venues, our member leaders like you at schools and work sites have voted with their feet and have made this the largest leadership conference in years. Based on previous year numbers, we prepared for about 500 attendees, and we're now at about 800. Please bear with us and be patient as we work to accommodate that incredible growth. And when you get impatient, just think about how encouraging it is that leaders from around the city are flocking to this conference and are abuzz about how we're going to fight for our schools, our profession, and our students. And believe me, it is going to be a fight. We live in a place with more millionaires than any other place on earth, but with one of the lowest per pupil funding rates in all 50 states. We live in a city that the Harvard Civil Rights Project calls hyper-segregated, where students who go to the most segregated schools are dramatically less likely to have access to basic resources in school. We live in a state that has the 8th largest economy in the world, but doesn't guarantee that every school has reasonable class sizes, a full-time nurse, a full-time librarian, a reasonable student-to-counselor ratio, or adequate emotional supports for students. We live in a place flush with well-funded interests who, amidst all these dynamics, have decided to blame educators, parents, and students for all of our educational and social ills. They've funded the Vergara suit to attack the right to a hearing and due process. They've funded so-called research that says that class size doesn't matter. They've funded communications firms that try to convince the public that educators don't need a raise. They've pushed policies like reconstitution, where all employees are forced to reapply and where student programs are destabilized. The blame the educator narrative has led directly to the creation of a climate of fear through a got-you evaluation system and teacher jail. And these same forces, citing the need for accountability, so-called accountability from those bad educators, have driven towards a narrowing of the curriculum, a move towards taking the joy out of teaching and learning, as everything gets tied to a standardized test that supposedly measures student and teacher progress. These are the policies that come out of the educator bashing agenda, and it's not what we deserve, and it's not what our students deserve. When we're up against these forces like these, and when we've been down so long, it's critical to understand that we are not going to win by having a union president make clever arguments in small negotiation rooms. We're going to win through organizing. Proactively organizing people into a powerful collective that can't be ignored, including LAUSD educators, charter educators that we represent, non-union charter educators that we want to represent, parents, community, youth, and labor. Every movement in history has won that way, from the civil rights movement to the immigrant rights movement. And that's what we need to do to win. As I've said many times, as part of the Schools LA Students Deserve campaign, we are bargaining in good faith for a contract that is good for students and educators, but we're also preparing ourselves for all possibilities. And you know from Wayne's talk exactly what we mean. We're in a deep hole, and others have been digging that hole for us for a long time. We're not going to turn this around overnight, and we're not going to win every battle. But we've turned the ship in the right direction now. We're going to organize, and we're going to build the power we need to win. That's our commitment to you. Your team among the UTLA officers and UTLA Board of Directors have done some excellent foundational work to set up the stage for that kind of organizing, and has also developed an action plan to move forward. So I'm going to share 7 key elements of a program that's about making a better world for educators, for students, for parents, and the broader community of Los Angeles. First, when we came into office on July 1st, we knew that one of the first things we had to do was reestablish connection and trust with our members. Over the course of just a 4-week school visit blitz, over a couple weeks in August and a couple weeks in September, we, along with our great UTLA staff, visited 443 schools. We talked to thousands of members at those schools. As the buzz got around, we heard over and over again things similar to what Grace Marroquin, chapter chair of Moore Academy, said, that the visit was empowering and that members are ready to unite and fight for our contract and community campaign. We heard it over and over and over again. Second, as organizers, we knew that we had to give immediate tools to chapter chairs to help them bring their chapters together early in the year. And we knew that we had to listen to what came out of those chapter meetings. So we created a survey. And over the course of just 2 weeks in September, close to 500 schools had chapter meetings, and 18,991 members got involved in that survey process. Out of this, we saw that 5 of the highest ranking bargaining priorities for our members are class size, pay, a fair evaluation system, safe and clean schools, and full staffing to meet the needs of students. The third piece of setting the stage for organizing and action was a big one. We needed to create an atmosphere of confidence among members to stimulate their interest and involvement at the grassroots level. With our members having been beaten down for so long, a critical avenue to inspire this kind of confidence was to take on very directly the source of a lot of that beatdown. In other words, we had to unapologetically take on John Daisy and his autocratic behavior. This meant taking on his autocratic insistence on moving forward with the iPads, even though it raided bond monies desperately needed for school repairs and air conditioning units. Even though it prioritized test prep over critical thinking, and even though it has led to serious investigations into his cozy relationships with multi-billion-dollar corporations. We were the first ones to call for a comprehensive investigation 30 minutes after he put his press release out at 10:30 at night on a Monday night. At 11 o'clock that night, we put out our press release calling for a full investigation. Taking on Daisy meant taking on his autocratic insistence on moving forward with Mises, even though he was warned repeatedly about the possible consequences for students, schools, and educators. Now, that superintendent, who puts himself forward as the champion of increased college access, presides over a computer system that forced Jefferson High School students in the heart of South LA to walk out of school in protest because Mises wouldn't put them in their classes correctly. We were the first ones to get Mises into the news. We were the ones who let the news know about the Jefferson High protests. We were the ones who went out on August 12th, the first day of school, and found the stories that we knew were coming. And we're not letting this one go. We're going to collaborate in student-led actions that are protesting the inability of students to access transcripts as they are trying to apply to college. We're pushing back on the Mises gradebook. We're pushing for compensation to counselors for the hours of extra work that they put in around Mises. We're pushing for the formation of a joint technology committee where educators and parents get to vet every major technology project going forward. Taking on Daisy's autocratic behavior also meant challenging the corrupt teacher jail policy. That he has singularly championed. My friend Iris Stevenson spent 9 months in teacher jail for taking the choir to France and to perform for Barack Obama. She was never given anything in writing. When she was released, she was still given nothing in writing. It is a corrupt, arbitrary system led by an autocratic superintendent. To be clear, no one is more interested in student safety than I am. I've got a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. But there's a way to protect student safety while also protecting the stability of student programs and of employee due process. We made very clear that we do not agree with the current teacher jail policy, and we've made clear that we're organizing to change it with parents, community, and youth. But we made equally clear a couple weeks ago that we believe that as long as this policy is in place, it is John Daisy's ethical responsibility to follow his own rules and, while under investigation, report immediately to teacher jail. He's not only under one investigation, he's under 3 or 4. So I don't know what we do with that under the policy, but that's some good feedback, some interesting ideas. We're going to work with that. Finally, taking on Daisy's autocratic behavior meant taking him on directly around issues of your pay. John Daisy has used district resources, robocalls, and mass emails to try to convince us that a 2% raise offer is actually a 26% offer.
He misplaced the decimal point.
Only, you know what? Only at a teachers' convention here. He then tried to convince us more recently that a 2% offer is 8.6%. No. 2% is 2%. 2% is frankly pretty close to what I regularly and annually spent on my classroom every year out of my own pocket. And they take advantage of that because teachers, we work with our students, we love our students. Students like Tauhida and Stephanie who came here tonight, who are now leaders, they take advantage of that, and we're not going to let them. 2% is simply unacceptable. We've explained to the public exactly why it is unacceptable. The district ended the 2013-14 school year with $507 million in its unrestricted reserves. That's existing money that can be used for a variety of purposes. That's an incredible 9% of the district's budget, when it is only required by law to have 2% in its reserves. Additionally, between 2013-14 and 2014-15, there's been a double-digit increase in average per pupil funding coming into LAUSD from the state. Double-digit increase, but 2% offer. Go figure. And between 2013-14 and 2014-15, there was an increase of 100% in funding devoted to professional and consulting services. Money spent far away from students and far away from classrooms. When's the last time that you saw a consultant teach in front of 48 high school students or in front of 35 kindergartners? It gets worse. John Daisy's offering educators a 2% salary increase when we've been out without one for 7 years. And after we took close to an 8% in salary cuts to keep the district afloat during the recession. Meanwhile, Daisy has received a 19% raise over the last 3 years. 19% raise plus tens of thousands of additional dollars in his compensation package. That seems breathtakingly irresponsible to me. John Daisy now faces his annual review of his contract. As he did last year, he's complaining that he won't get a fair hearing from the school board. Sorry, I'm not supposed to smile during that part. And now, because UTLA is clearly organizing with a proactive agenda and with a great deal of momentum, in the streets, in the schools, and in the media, the LA School Report and the LA Times have jumped in to play a little defense for Daisy. However, what we're saying is really simple and actually pretty hard to argue with. John Daisy, in the annual review of your contract, play by your own rules. Be accountable for your autocratic actions and their dramatic consequences for students and educators. School board members, hold Daisy accountable. The fourth piece of the action plan, number 3, was long. It had, it was about John Daisy, so it took a while. Sorry. We're back to number 4. So the fourth piece of the action plan is around member involvement in political action. Over the summer, we again were outspent 4-1, but our candidate, George McKenna, won anyway. Grassroots power again beat the money power. Now, we have to do the same to get Tom Torlakson elected as the state superintendent of instruction. He's running against one of the most famous privatizers around, the former head of the Mayor's Partnership, Marshall Tuck. We have to empower the activists and use the networks that we create in Tom's campaign to strengthen our organizing for the school board races in March 2015. For March 2015, we're excited to have already endorsed Bennett Kaiser in the race for school board in District 5. We'll need boots on the ground in that race. In the other board races, we're actually going to do some things that are too rarely seen in the world of labor. We're only going to endorse candidates who support our bargaining positions. And who embrace the principles of the schools LA students deserve. We're going to involve rank and file members in the endorsement process by taking candidate interviews to school sites. And we're going to keep on organizing during and after the election to hold candidates accountable for what they say they're going to do. In other words, we're going to use politics to support our program instead of letting politics be our program. And you can be sure that one key question of all the candidates when they're out at those school sites, amidst our members, in an accountability session and an endorsement session, you can best believe that one of the questions is going to be quite simple. Do you endorse the demands of UTLA's Schools LA Students Deserve contract and community campaign. The fifth piece of our organizing program and action plan involves working with parents, community, and youth. For too long, UTLA has allowed others who often have no experience in education to engage parents and tell only one side of the story about schools. Those days are over. While we may not agree with parents, community, and youth organizations about everything, we agree on at least 80% of things. Parents want low class sizes. Parents want a stable teaching force at their school. Parents want music. Parents want the arts. Parents want clean and safe schools. Parents want a nurse at their school. Parents want a librarian at their school. And the list goes on. For the first time, UTLA is taking a multi-level strategic initiative around parent-community engagement. We're going to start the process this weekend of identifying and training a parent-community coordinator at every school. This will be simultaneous with systematic outreach to community organizations across the city, seeking partners for a community board in support of the Schools LA Students Deserve campaign. The community board will also help guide UTLA's efforts to support community-centered demands and campaigns. We simply won't have the power to win what we and our students need without parents. So we are getting on that. The sixth piece of the puzzle is tying all of this to our bargaining for the Schools LA Students Deserve. Framing our bargaining demands is our opportunity to seize the terms of the debate and put out a vision for what our schools and educators need. It's critical that we fight for a broad package of demands because that reflects what our members want, as shown by these surveys. And it increases our power because it motivates all members and parents to participate. In addition, fighting for a broad package prevents us from ceding the debate on any issue to LAUSD, thereby protecting us from an undermining dynamic that will weaken all of our demands at the negotiating table, including pay. For example, if the district ties a demand around evaluation to a pay offer, as Daisy has already done, and if UTLA doesn't have its own strong, proactive demand around a fair evaluation system, LAUSD is going to use that at the table and in the public to not only hammer us on evaluation, but also to force our pay demand down. A package is critical. And from the Schools LA Students Deserve initiative that was passed by our membership over 1.5 years ago, and from the work of the House of Representatives last year, and from the bargaining survey that almost 19,000 of our members recently participated in a 2-week period, we know what the basic elements of our package are. We know it's class size reduction. We know it's pay restoration and increase. We know it's full staffing, including for real, supported restorative justice programs. We know it's for safe and clean schools. We know it's a fair evaluation system we're demanding. We know we're demanding a restoration of adult education and early education programs. We know that we're demanding a well-rounded curriculum that includes music, the arts, PE, ethnic studies, and more. We know one of our demands is ending teacher jail as we know it. We know that we're fighting for educator-led professional development and school improvement in place of top-down reconstitutions. We know that we're fighting for an end to unnecessary standardized testing. We know we want full health benefits. We know we want immediate placement of displaced educators. And we know that we want respect for instructional time. A key piece of our bargaining strategy is the big bargaining tactic, used by our teacher union allies in Chicago and St. Paul. The idea of bringing large groups of rank and file and stakeholders to the table at key junctures in the bargaining. With MISIS, we already experimented with this, bringing rank and file counselors and educators into negotiations where they owned that table, speaking with the moral authority of a school site perspective that district lawyers just couldn't compete with. We've also called for parents to be brought into negotiations at key junctures, an idea the district has thus far rejected. What are they afraid of? The seventh and final piece of the puzzle in our action plan is UTLA internal organizational restructuring. While you in this room are the backbone of the organizing that we must do, we must restructure internally to bring staff on to coordinate and support the key pieces of this action plan. Put simply, UTLA needs to come into the 21st century around organizing. To this end, we went to our state and national affiliates. Many of those folks are in the room tonight. CTA, CFT, NEA, and AFT. And we said to them that everything is affected by what happens in LA, across the state, across the country. We asked that because of this, our affiliates invest in UTLA and invest in our strategic vision. To invest to help us organize, to win key things for our schools, educators, and communities, to shape the national debate, and to move forward a conversation about UTLA's long-term stability. Our affiliates have come through with a groundbreaking cost-sharing agreement where the parties will share costs for several key positions within our organizational restructuring. We've brought on Jeff Good as our executive director, who's getting a smile from his daughter right now. Jeff brings a wealth of experience from CTA. Sharon DeLugich, who's the Western Region Parent Engagement Coordinator in AFT, is now assigned for 3/4 of her time with us in UTLA. We've brought on Esperanza Martinez as a parent community organizer who brings a wealth of experience in community organizing and racial justice to the table. And we've brought on Brian McNamara as our field and organizing director, who's been an organizing director at one of the premier organizing unions in the country for the last several years, having helped unions organize to the point of a strike, having helped unions organize strikes, and having helped unions organize towards numerous contract victories along the way. We've brought on Brian McNamara. Within the next month, we'll be hiring a political director and a strategic researcher. We are gearing up for this fight. With those 7 puzzle pieces together as our foundation for organizing and our action plan around the schools LA students deserve, what are our immediate steps? First, you're here for this, and it's wonderful. Please participate fully in this wonderful leadership conference. The area meetings and the core training are going to be absolutely key for the rest of the year. Second, wear red shirts on Tuesday, September 30th. It seems small, but Daisy will ask his administrators, you best believe he will, to count the shirts to measure our resolve. And when they see them from the harbor to Chatsworth and East LA to the beach, it's going to send a message of our networks of communication and our resolve across the city. So let's do that. Immediate step, please identify a parent community coordinator at your school. Watch for upcoming trainings for chapter chairs and those parent community coordinators on organizing. Keep your eye out for the first of a series of monthly escalating actions starting in October at school sites. Work with your parent community coordinator to have small group meetings with parents during the month of October about the Schools LA Students Deserve campaign. Get involved in the Tom Torlakson campaign. Watch for ways to get involved early in the campaigns for school board districts 1, 3, 5, and 7. And watch for ways to get involved in the community forums on the Schools LA Students Deserve demands for school board members in the other board districts 2, 4, and 6. Those are some immediate steps that are going to come out of this conference that are going to send us on our way. I was privileged to start this speech having been introduced by young people who see me as one of their mentors, which is a privilege and an honor. I think you can tell from the way Stephanie and Tauhida speak and what they're involved in that they're going to be leaders that we are going to be hearing from. But let me end it by speaking about one of my mentors. Thinking back to 1990, 1991, and 1992, I wouldn't have made it through my first 2 years of teaching in Compton without a 45-year veteran teacher named Cleopatra Duncan next door. Miss Duncan wasn't an official mentor teacher. She wasn't particularly outspoken on campus. She wasn't a rabble-rouser. She called me that. But she was a great teacher. And she knew when somebody next door needed help. She invested in me because she knew I might become a career teacher. And when the educators on campus decided to take some collective action, she was always right there. Miss Duncan, not TGDC, helped me become a great teacher. I often wonder what Miss Duncan would think about today's autocratic educational system, where we've got great students, great educators, great parents, so much potential, but where the system knocks us down wherever it can. I think we owe it to Miss Duncan and to the tens of thousands of students whose lives she positively shaped through the course of segregated schools in the South, unequal schools in California, and schools in the middle of fires in 1992 Compton. I think we owe it to her and her students to protect and expand a truly public education. When I think of Miss Duncan and all of her students, when I think of my students who started this off, Stephanie and Tauhida, and when I think of my kids, Max and Ella, I know I'm ready. I'm ready to fight for the schools LA students deserve. I know you're ready to fight for the schools LA students deserve. And I know from you being here with a record-breaking crowd, from site visits all over the city, from survey results, from the feedback we get every day from educators, I know that we as a union are ready to fight for the schools that LA students deserve. Let's use this conference as a launching pad. Let's organize and let's win these demands around the schools LA students deserve. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you throughout the weekend.